It's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Hurricane Debby, it's now Hurricane Debby, approaching the coast of Florida, and 80 miles an hour, Cat 1 right now.
Yeah, according to the National Hurricane Center, Debby is very near landfall in the Florida Big Bend. As you mentioned, 80 mile an hour sustained winds. They do have gusts being reported higher than that. They are expecting a very dangerous surge in some areas of Florida as high as 10 feet. And then you were talking about during the break, as you look at the forecast for Debby, as Debby makes landfall over the next few days, in fact, into Friday and even Saturday, Debby is still going to be dumping rain in parts of the southeast.
You know, I'm looking right where right at Tallahassee right now, and you look, and they show anywhere between 4 and 6 inches. But if you go east of Tallahassee, between Tallahassee and Jacksonville, you're talking about places that could see 6 to 8 inches, or even 12 to 16 inches of rain. Then you get up into Georgia, and you get up near Savannah, and they're talking 16 to 20 inches of possible rain. And then you look at places like Charleston, South Carolina, and south of Charleston, 20 to 30 inches of rain is what is predicted right now.
Right.
And then you get other parts of Georgia with 12 to 16, 8 to 12 inches of rain. You're talking major, major flooding in many of those areas. And if you've seen the actual cone here, this thing, I mean, it's only going to be, here we are early Monday. By the time you get to 2 a.m. Saturday, so 5 days from now, it'll still be centered over North Carolina.
Yeah.
Is what they show right now. What would be the hypothetical center of what they call it, the air of uncertainty?
Yeah, the cone of uncertainty.
The cone of uncertainty.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, spreads all the way across North Carolina, but the center of it's right in the middle of North Carolina, of what will be a tropical depression at that time. So this thing's going to spend. I mean, you look at it by 2 a.m. tomorrow.
Yeah,
really by 2 p.m. tomorrow through Thursday and Friday. This thing's going to be sitting over South Carolina.
Yeah, it will move slowly, and that means heavy rain. You know, when it comes to hurricanes, basically high water, flooding is the most dangerous part of it, both the storm surge and then the rain that it dumps combined, and that's going to be the case here with Hurricane Debby over the next few days. And again, getting, according to the National Hurricane Center, getting very close to landfall, and they do expect that here in the coming hours. They're in the Big Bend area of Florida. Wow.
Yeah. Tons of stuff coming, isn't it?
Yeah.
Then what will the stock market, what kind of a day will it be on Wall Street today? Not a good day for the Tokyo Stock Exchange. It closed 12.4% down.
Yeah, really bad for the Nikkei, and you look at that, you have to go back decades to find a day that bad. Here
87,
in the US,
87 at least.
Mm-hmm. And here in the U.S., it is the futures don't look great. And by the way, what we're about to report is a lot better than it was before. NASDAQ futures down right now 728, and the Dow futures down 616. Again, that's better than where we were when we started the show, and let's hope it continues to improve throughout the day. But a lot of this was triggered on Friday with the jobs report here in the U.S. and the concern the growing concern about a recession here in the U.S. and what all that means. You see tech companies, Intel looking to that has already announced that they're going to lay off thousands. Other tech companies that right now the earnings just aren't great. And you get back to, the affordability of things. You and I talked about it last week. We're getting into August now. Back to school is like a second Christmas for parents. It's things that you have to buy. The difference between back to school and Christmas season is that at Christmas season, at least there's a little bit of joy. You get a little bit of joy there at home. Back to school, not so much. Listen, we hope it's a pleasant back to school for everybody, but for parents, it's always been worrisome because you have to come up with money for uniforms or clothes, and then everything else that they need, all their supplies. And then there's a lot of keeping track of everything going on in their new classes and all of that. And it's a very, very hectic time. But with inflation, it just, again, being hit over the last few years with inflation over and over again, it's not getting any less expensive. And you struggle to make ends meet anyway. The parents right now are struggling for back-to-school items, as was going to be the case, because we're not seeing those prices come down in a big way. And so I don't know what it looks like for jobs in August. I don't know what it looks like for the rest of the year. And the question on everybody's mind, all the analysts on Friday, were wondering, are we in recession territory right now?
Now, you might have heard of the SOM rule, which everybody's been saying, well, that's the indicator that we're heading into a recession. Because you're wondering, well, what's the panic if you had one bad month, right?
Mm-hmm.
The July jobs report, this from Fox Business, is being viewed as a recession warning, and the markets are responding accordingly, said Bill Adams, chief economist at the Dallas-based Comerica Bank. And the first question you'd ask is, well, why? Yeah, it was a bad month, but don't you wait 2 months or 3 months? Well, with the jobless rate unexpectedly rising as it did, the so-called SOM rule is now in play. This is named after former Federal Reserve economist Claudius SOM. The rule has successfully predicted every recession since 1970. Mm-hmm. It stipulates that the economy is in the early stages of a recession when the 3-month moving average of the jobless rate is at least a percentage point higher than the 12-month low. Over the past 3 months, the unemployment rate has averaged 4.13%, which is 0.63 percentage points higher than the 3.5% rate recorded in July of 2023, crossing that threshold. So if you're saying to yourself, because you saw that, I think Jim Cramer's up overnight, apparently worried. But he was saying, well, this is just, this is just pure panic. Well, I think the panic is caused by maybe that indicator.
I think there's a couple of things there. I think that, and you saw Berkshire Hathaway selling nearly half its stake in Apple. He's known for taking profits, but you take profits when you think it's going to get worse, and these are going to be your best profits. He did that with not just Apple, but Bank of America. I say he, but Berkshire Hathaway with Bank of America. And you look at signs where their cash at Berkshire Hathaway, the cash on hand is growing. In other words, they're on the sidelines for a number of positions that they were in just recently. So you look at that and what indicators they might be looking at, but that's always a headwind, or that's always an indicator, rather, that you're getting into a situation where a lot of people, I saw so many articles on Friday, are saying, well, is it time to get onto the sidelines? In other words, get out of stocks or whatever it is. It's when that kind of chatter comes about, and the word recession was repeated last week more than I've heard it in a long time by analysts, and most of that was on Friday. Then there is that is a great concern that drives the market. Could that concern be remedied by earnings and everything else, some surprise earnings? I don't know. I don't know that you're certainly not going to see, with the NASDAQ entering correction territory on Friday, and if the futures where they are right now hold, it's going to be another bad day today. And if this is a trend and a pretty healthy bear market, then, that's the question is it based on fundamentals? Jim Cramer saying it's everybody panicking. How much of it is actually based on fundamentals? The jobs numbers aren't a small thing.
And when you look at it and put it into perspective, as the SOM rule does, you look at the 3-month moving average, which starts the first month and then goes back 3 months. And if the jobless rate is at least a half a percentage point higher than the 12-month low, which it is, it's 0.63 percentage points, that's when the SOM rule kicks into effect. And every time that has happened since 1970, we've had a recession. That's the point they're trying to bring up, that these are the kind of numbers. And if it's a 0.63, we may be headed towards a recession. The thinking is that the rise in unemployment reflects a spike in layoffs. When workers lose their jobs, they cut back on spending, which in turn hurts businesses. Those businesses are more likely to cut more jobs, thus perpetuating the cycle. Historically, after the SOM rule has been triggered, the employment rate keeps climbing.
Yeah.
The SOM rule does not capture an important aspect of historical data, said Preston Caldwell, chief U.S. economist at Morningstar. Once the unemployment rate gets moving upward, it's very likely to continue rising. Rising unemployment is part of a vicious process of economic contraction. The rule uses a 3-month moving average to smooth out any inconsistencies in the data and to capture the overall trend in the labor market rather than rely on one data point that might be an outlier. 1 month might be an outlier.
Right.
So we'll see very soon.
Yep. Yeah, we'll know. We'll definitely know.
I'd like to go back and look at history and see the last time it hit, what you see in the months afterwards. Because it's not going to be good if you have an unemployment rate that goes up in a month from now, then October, then early November,
and
right
also
before the election.
Where was inflation during those periods, during those previous periods?
Yeah, what was inflation?
Was it higher than the target of 2%?
Yeah, that's a great point.
Because if it was, now you have two things working against the consumer. The fear of or reality of unemployment, where they pull back their spending, and inflation, where prices still aren't coming down. They're going up, and it may be at 3% or just a little above 3% higher than last year. That's still on top of last year, and that was on top of the year before. Again, it's the affordability or lack thereof of pretty much everything. Once you started seeing certain brands get into and now the fast food companies are coming up with any kind of value menu they can put together, then everybody is scrambling because you're just scrambling for market share. On the grocery store shelves, the name brand companies are scrambling to compete again because they're losing market share to the store brands in a big way. But there's nothing right now in the near future that shows consumers are going to ramp up spending.
I saw something that said that inflation, 70% of the people a year ago were worried about. Now it's 66%. I think that's in the margin of error. Or very close to it, because I don't see any different. Look, I can afford everything I buy, and I still notice it.
Oh, it's
and if I notice it, then I'm going to say it's a concern.
Look, if it's no longer a value to me, whether I can afford it or not is beside the point. If it's not a value, I just don't see it as a value, then I'm not going to spend the money on it. And it's under a microscope with everybody right now.
I went to the supermarket again yesterday, got less than 10 items, and it was like $70. I'm like, what did I get?
Yep.
And you just notice it every time you go.
Mm-hmm.
Do people get used to inflation? Because I got that question from somebody over the weekend. They said, how can Harris be in the lead in some of those polls? Do people forget about inflation? I said, I don't think they do.
No. Well, I don't know how you can.
Because it affects you every single day. And there's nothing more personal than money.
Right.
866-90 Red Eye.
This morning's USDA Farm Report is brought to you by House Products. Tested, trusted, guaranteed since 1920.
The Federal Trade Commission estimates 4 out of 5 Americans will lose money this year to phone and internet scammers.
And unfortunately, older adults as a whole, are a particularly favorite target.
So why are scammers targeting older folks? Kansas State University Extension educator Barbara Stockerbrand says first,
they're more likely to listen, they are often more trusting, and they're more easily caught off guard.
And the scammers have many appeals that sound legitimate.
Someone calling from Social Security, needing your personal information or confirming that. Or the IRS with threats of arrest, possibly if outstanding taxes aren't paid. There may be a call or an email. A friend or a grandchild is in trouble and in need of money immediately.
Immediately. Stockerbrand says that is a big red flag that usually says beware scammers at work. For more information, go online, go to federaltradecommission.gov. Federal Trade Commission. Gary Crawford for the U.S. Department of Agriculture.
This report brought to you by Cenex Fuels and Lubes.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Well, so Kamala's supposed to pick a vice president here in the next couple of days?
Yeah, I mean, the deadline is here, and the voting on the nomination ends officially tonight at 6 p.m. Eastern. And so she already has enough, but the question will be, okay, they've announced, in fact, this morning they re-announced it. The story's been out there, but they're going to hit, the Harris campaign's going to hit, in 5 days, they're going to hit the 7 battleground states, both her and her VP pick, and that starts tomorrow. So we may learn as soon as tonight or sometime today, no later than tomorrow, though, who the VP pick is.
I still say Josh Shapiro because they want, I do believe that, we talked about CNN about a week ago, said, oh, we can't do Josh Shapiro because he's Jewish. I think they will do it because that allows her to play both sides of the Israeli game. That's what she thinks. I don't think it's going to work, but I think that's what the thinking is. Help get us Pennsylvania. Plus, I can keep saying we want this 2-state solution, which is impossible. It's not going to happen. I can still continue to be the anti-Semite that the leadership of this party is, and we can claim we're not anti-Semites because I have a Jewish vice president. I really think that's where they're going to go. I wouldn't be surprised if they went that way. I don't think they can sell it on that issue, but I think that's where they'll try to go.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
And he's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. Thanks so much for being here. All right, now the problem that Kamala Harris has, even though by listening to the media, you would think that she has no problem because the RCP average, she is now up on Trump. And Trump did not have the greatest week campaigning last week. I think the major problem that she has is there's no correlation between her in the polls and where the public stands on the issues between where she stands and Biden stands. And that's a huge problem. As CBS reported, nearly half of voters say President Trump's policies will make them financially better off. 25% for Kamala. It's 25% on the number one issue. And things may be getting worse now. The public may go sour this week, depending on what happens to the stock market. The other thing is, on 3/4, 75% say illegal border crossings will go down if President Trump wins, 18% if Kamala wins. So that's Lance. What is that? Almost 57 points.
Yeah.
On that particular issue. So where the public stands on the issues and what they believe each candidate stands for is really no different than Biden.
No.
And when you get to the CBS poll where they ask the question that whether Harris and Biden's policies positions are the same, 64% said mostly the same, 18% entirely the same. So that's 82% of people that believe that what she believes is mostly or entirely the same as what Biden believes. So her rise in the polls have nothing to do with the actual policy positions that she has, even though she's attempting to abandon those positions. As we all know, for like fracking of the border, she's tougher on the border. That's going to be a very tough sell for her to say she's tougher on the border than that's you had Chris Murphy.
Yeah.
Let me see if I can find it. Here it is. Chris Murphy on Fox News Sunday. Let's listen to what he had to say.
First of all, Kamala Harris has always been for border security. And the fact of the matter is this campaign is going to involve a enormously important contrast between the Biden-Harris administration, which has pushed for bipartisan border security legislation.
It's pure BS. Nobody's going to buy it.
That's garbage.
And so they're out there. And that's the other thing, too. You have all the surrogates pushing it. Now, there's some radical things. We played LaFonza Butler, Senator Butler from California. And CNN was blunt. Look, she's changed her mind on all these things. You're not worried? Oh, no. You know, people grow, and she's grown, and she sees now and has new opinions. People aren't going to buy that. So what you see, I can't tell you why people that disagree with probably the top 5 issues on Kamala Harris, why they might have been supporting Trump. I actually think that what you're seeing is not that the change is coming from those voters. I see, have you noticed how Kennedy has dropped?
Yeah.
And Kennedy dropped before the bear incident.
I was going to say he dropped like a bear in Central Park.
Oh, my God. That is such a... That's weird.
That's
weird. That's weird.
It's so weird. Something else happened. Something else happened.
I can see a reporter going up. If a bear is killed near Central Park...
If a bear's killed in the woods, does a bear die in the woods? Because I smell something else, and it's not good.
We'll get to that in a moment in case you haven't heard it, because the story is just it's mind-boggling.
Weird.
That's the definition of weird. If we're looking for a definition of weird, we found it.
Yeah.
But I think that's really the problem, is the fact that right now it's just a new, fresh face.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. Because you have to understand, people do not pay attention to what's going on in politics. I bet you 15% of the public just found out that Harris is a vice president. We assume that people pay attention to politics, and they don't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm thinking right now in my mind, if I can go, I think I can go to 3 people that I know who will not know that she's vice president right now.
That she's currently the vice president.
That she's currently the vice president. These are people that pay no attention to politics at all. They're not involved at they vote.
Mm-hmm. That's what they're counting on.
But if you talk to them come October, they're the ones going, well, I think I'm going to vote for this. You're like, oh my God, how can you be undecided? Have you paid no attention? We keep forgetting that there are people that pay no attention to politics.
Yeah, that's what I was mentioning earlier. Is that they're counting on that and reaching people with, hey, look, there's this new person.
Yeah.
That's been vice president for the last 3.5 years.
But you can't take away from the fact that the polls on the issues have not changed at all, from what I can see. At all.
No.
In fact, on immigration, it might even be greater for her.
I think that.
than some of the polls.
And also the economy.
25%,
Especially
yeah.
if we have a bad week on the Dow and we keep getting data from different reports that show the economy we might be headed to or might currently be in a recession. One thing that about those reports is that once you start hearing more about layoffs, then you fear for your job, or you might be in a position where you or somebody in your family has already been laid off.
Well, here's the thing that you and I talked about, because of the Trump identity politics and then him hitting Brian Kemp, which we all, like I said, when you have Michael Savage come out and say Trump's got to stop doing these personalized things and identity politics, otherwise he's not going to win. Mm-hmm. When he's that blunt,
yeah.
And as I said last week, even with the Brian Kemp thing, I don't think any of this is fatal. You can recuperate from it all because of the basics here that nobody has changed. Nobody has said, we believe that Harris is going to be tough on the border.
Mm-hmm.
Even though that's 3 or 4 days old.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody believes it.
No.
Everybody believes the same on the issues and tying each one onto the issues. But there's a significant portion out there that disagree with Harris completely, that claim they're going to vote for her.
Right. Yeah.
And that's just looking at all the polls and the polling on the issues. And the polling on the issues many times, I believe, can be much more steady than polling on candidates and personalities.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, there you go. So that's the problem she has now. This week is still the Olympics. You got to remember, there's a lot of people not paying attention to what's going on. They're on vacation. They're paying attention to the Olympics. They're having tons of cocktails, and in certain states, probably more than cocktails. Mm-hmm. And, they're not paying attention. But I have seen in the news, going back to school, how much it's going to cost and how many parents can't afford back to school this year.
Yeah.
I saw 2 or 3 articles, or not articles, but newspaper, good God, television news reports on that this weekend, that there's going to be a problem with that. So we've got that coming up. We don't know what the stock market's going to do if Trump comes out and starts promoting big time this week. And you need all the surrogates out there doing it, talking about dropping taxes for Social Security. That's huge, especially if the stock market crashes this week over the next couple of weeks and stays down over the next couple of months. Perfect opportunity. We've had elderly people that have lost money in the stock market because of the Biden-Harris policies out there, and people that are and by the way, look at, for example, the state of Texas. What the state of Texas did is very popular with elderly people and property taxes. Mm-hmm. You know how I know?
You're an elderly person that lives in Texas that owns property.
My property taxes went down $2,000 last year. That's never happened to me in the history of any state I've lived in where I've got a reduction of taxes like that while still, for example, making a particular income for income tax. If you lose the income, you're not paying the income tax, but I still have the same house. $2,000 my property taxes went down because that's where the state of Texas is heading, saying property taxes, we got to get it down. We got to get it down, especially for seniors.
Right.
And that's where they're at right now. So, I mean, this right now, if the stock market we start going into recession, stock market starts getting hit, unemployment goes up, that's a great sell for him. And by the way, the first one to promise that is the one that matters.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's going to happen. I don't know if they can take the hit, but I remember, what was it, 80, 81? When was it? I forgot when they started taxing Social Security. It was huge when they did that.
Yeah.
It's like, what the hell are you talking about taxing Social Security?
Right.
Then unemployment. They didn't used to tax unemployment.
Nope. No, and
wait a minute, maybe am I getting one confused with the other?
I don't know about I've never received unemployment, so I don't know. I know it's been taxed since I've been, in fact, I had a family member that took it when I was in my mid-20s, and I know it was taxed then. I don't know how long it's been taxed in our state.
Yeah.
But
overwhelming bipartisan support in 83 to tax Social Security.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, and now you're going to look at, again, a compounding effect of what's going on just with the economy. Back to school, parents struggling. Everything else, aside from back to school, and Christmas is just a few months away, and then the fear of layoffs.
Very quickly, the RFK story. RFK told Roseanne Barr, there's a video of it, and he's trying to get ahead of a story that he was out going hunting. We'll just put it that way, right?
He was taking some friends falconing.
Falconing. Instead, I just figured to say hunting instead of falconing and have to explain what falconing is. Told Roseanne Barr he was on the way there when a woman in a van in front of him hit a young bear. He decided to put the young bear in the back of his car because he was going to skin the bear and put the meat in his refrigerator, but then he decided not to, and with the group of acquaintances he was with, and they were all drunk, and he wasn't apparently drunk, he said, well, I don't want to leave the bear in my car, so he and his acquaintances decided, let's dump the bear in Central Park, put a bicycle next to it to pretend that the bicycle hit the bear and killed the bear. Wow. That's basically the story. And apparently the New Yorker was going to come out with it, so he decided to come out with it first. Now, that's weird.
Now I've got to read the New Yorker story and see how it differentiates between his story.
You know, what parts are missing here? He said he was sober, but they were not.
And what close friend of RFK Jr. is clearly not going to vote for him and is the source of the story.
866-90 Red Eye.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. So that, again, because a lot of talk about the former President Trump and his campaigning last week and how she is closed in the polls. And, yeah, I mean, the polls show that, but it also shows America hasn't changed at all, identifying which candidates endorse what issues.
Right.
Well, that's huge because you haven't seen any movement at all. In fact, it might be it might be going in the opposite direction for her. So the reason of her approval, she's new. She's not Biden, but the policies are the same. And if it keeps going down this road, economically speaking, are there going to be that many people that disagree on the 3 or 4 or 5 major issues that concern them in their lives? And she will vote another way, are they going to vote for her? That's the question.
Yeah.
Will people continue to vote against what they believe is right for whatever reason? Because I don't know what the reason would be.
I think there were some Democrats, can't quantify it, but there were some Democrats who were on the sideline because of Biden. And I think they were more of the stay-at-home Democrats. Are they more motivated to get out there now? Are they being more proactive with pollsters now? Are we seeing that reflection? I don't know. At some point, people are going to find out what positions she actually holds if they don't already know. And that's not going to help her.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One.